All right, today on Connor's Music at Home, we're talking about ties and slurs, the good kind. That's coming up. Connor's Music at Home. All right, so covered so far in your music learning, we've talked about quarter notes, half notes, whole notes, eighth notes, 16th notes, all of their rests. There's lots of ways to express music, but all of them have all added up to a total of a maximum of 4 beats. Now we've been talking about the fact that if we're playing in common time, 4/4 time, there are 4 beats in a bar. So what happens if you want a note that's longer than that? Are we just limited forever to being reduced to only 4 beat notes? We can only go la. No, that's ridiculous. That's preposterous. We are creative folk and we might think outside of that box. So as a result, we resort to ties. So ties are a way of connecting notes together to tell the player, the musician, that we need to hold that note for even longer. So, for example, if we had a whole note and they had a tie on top of them, or below, depending on where it is on the staff, if you have them connected by an arcing line, that tells you that you hold this note 1, 2, 3, 4, another 2, 3, 4 for a combined 8. So you can have 8. That's a huge, long number we never thought we would need. Conversely, if you have that moment where music needs to extend itself over the measure line in between two bars, if you need a note to go past it, but it's just a short distance, you use that tie to help you to bridge the gap. So that allows you to cross over that what was an impenetrable measure line for the end of a measure of music. You'd be like, well, notes, all my music has to end by that measure line. Not anymore. We have a tie, and the tie can connect us into that next measure to let your music keep going smoothly, and you can express note values that go over that barrier. That is no longer a barrier. That is a lovely thing. That is a very creative thing to have at your disposal. So next, slurs, the good kind. So the good kind of slur is when we are able to do that same kind of marking, the same kind of thing you would see in the standard notation, which is that line underneath or above, that swoopy, archy line. It connects 2 notes, but those notes are at 2 different parts of the staff. That is the difference. So you have to make sure that if you see that the note has changed from one area on the staff to another, that's a slur, and that means that you have to play the note into the next note, make that change, but make it in a, I suppose, as a string and fret player, I would use that in a left-hand technique, a slide or a hammer-on, something that would allow me to smoothly transition between those notes. If I was playing a wind instrument, I would slide from one note to if I was playing trombone, I wouldn't go bum, bum. I would let those notes in between, slide in there. A very, very fancy way to say that would be legato articulation. So we could be using legato articulation to do that, but more importantly, depending on the instrument you're doing, you would study a technique that would allow you to go from one note to the next very smoothly, very transitioning, without it having a note, then another note. It's like ba, not ba, ba. You hear the difference. Good. So that's ties and that's slurs, the good kind. We're going to go a little bit more into this when we consider trying to do a little bit of tie math. Ooh, tie math. I said Math. Oh, no, watch out. Okay, so we're going to do a little bit of mathematics later on with our lovely ties. So that is the difference between a tie and a slur. Thank you so much. Two notes, but which one's greater? Which one's the better note? I don't know. I guess we'll have to call it a tie. All right, so I thought I would get a little bit extra Canadian for today's song of the day, because that's kind of how I roll with this song. I'm going to get a little historical too, because that's also how I roll. One of the things that's really interesting is that Canada, before we had O Canada, that was written by Alexis Lavallee, there was an unofficial Canadian national anthem that was used quite frequently called the Maple Leaf Forever. That was written in 1867 by Alexander Muir. And this was written about a maple tree that inspired him in Toronto to connect in with that. And that's a big part of our maple leaf heritage in Canada, is this specific tree. Now, unfortunately, the tree was recently, it had died, as things do. But the tree was recently chopped down. But in Toronto, there's a marker for it still. And there's lots of offspring from that tree that are all connected to the original tree that Alexander Muir had the inspiration to write our unofficial national anthem, the Maple Leaf Forever, about. Now, there's been lots of versions of the lyrics. There's a version of the lyrics that the Connors brothers like using. And so I'm just going to make an abridged version, because it is quite a historical long song. I'm going to make an abridged version for you today. And pick a little banjo, because why not? In days of yore to this wild shore, French and British strangers came and planted firm their conquest flags where native people reigned. And in struggle and in hope they forged a nation here together. There might wave so proud and free the maple leaf forever. From Arctic lands to Great Lakes grand, Bay Despair to Nootka Sound, may patriot love unite us and true commonwealth be found. And may Canadians new and old uphold the great endeavor, that there might wave so proud and free the maple leaf forever. The maple leaf, our emblem dear, the maple leaf forever. Long may it wave and God defend. The maple leaf forever. All right, time for mathematics. Ooh, it's almost a swear word. One might even say it might be a slur. So, mathematics and music are hand in hand. It is something we constantly have to be aware of while we're playing music. All the note values we do are based on fractions. We're doing things based out of fours. We have to add note values together. In this case, we are literally going to add to create a sum, because the definition of a tie, one of the many definitions, by the way, when I say many definitions, they all mean the same thing. But if you have a person who wrote down articulately the definition of a tie in the early 1900s, they would have a very lengthy explanation with bombastic language to explain the way one might have these two notes interconnect, or we might just say they're connected. right? So we're gonna use the definition today that a tie is a curved line that connects two notes of the same pitch, thereby creating a durational value equal to the sum of the values of the connected notes. And that's me trying to put the definition into layman's terms to keep it kind of simple. So I'm going to take that. A tie is a curved line. Check. That means that you have to add the two notes together, play one note, and make it the length of two. That's the way I'm going to say it for you guys at home. We could say, creating a durational value equal to the sum of the values, and it sounds like we're trying to do the square hypotenuse of a triangle. But today we're just adding, keeping it simple. A whole note is worth 4 beats. A whole note is worth 4 beats. Connect them together. Whole note is worth 4. Whole note is worth 4. Add them together. 8. We have 8. So that first one is worth a value of 8. So we have to play that note and let it ring out for 8 beats. I would go la. Okay? 8. Now, I am not going to give you the answers or write these in. These are the things you're going to have to do and submit to your teacher. I will number them. That one might make it a little easier for while you're trying to communicate with somebody else about this activity. So if you're working with a music teacher on this. Activity 2. We have a half note first, and that half note is worth 2 beats. Quarter note. Quarter note is worth 1. So you have to loop, loop, add them together, and sustain the note for that much. Write it in the blank. Number 3, we have a half note and a whole note. We have number 4, we have 2 quarter notes. Now, you might say to yourself, 2 quarter notes, 1 plus 1. There might be another way to write that. The reason we might need to use the tie instead of writing that a different way is it might be crossing over the measure line. So you can't have a note that says it's going to start here and pass over. It's that line we can't do. So you need your tie to help you connect those two. It's a bridge over troubled waters. Number 5. So just in case dotted notes get a little bit fancy, I'm going to explain quickly. A dotted half note, the definition of a dotted note is that you take the note, you chop it in half, whoosh, and then you add upon itself the value of the remaining half to the original note. That sounds really messy, because it kind of is. It's not the easiest way to express how to get to this additional note value. But what we're going to simplify that as, when you see a dotted half note, a half note is worth 2. Whoosh, whoosh. Dotted means you cut it in half, whoosh, then add it back to itself, whoosh, for a value of 1, 2, 3. So a dotted half note is worth 3. That's a tip. I'm not filling out the rest of the answers. I'm being really nice on this math, by the way, because I realize when you do music, you're not expecting it to be math. You didn't sign up for math class. We wanted music class. But I really want to make sure we get this across. Now, you can, in some circumstances, have ties that connect and connect and connect. You got to have really good lung capacity if you're singing that one. I'll sing this one, but I'm not going to give you the answer. So it's connected and connected again. Let me try this again. Okay. La. So that would be that particular number 6's answer, how long one would need to play it for. You can I counted with my hands, but you have to add it all together. So do that math, submit it to check it with a teacher, make sure that you're doing it correctly. Or you can check it with a parent at home too. They'll just have to recap and maybe watch the rest of my webisodes to know all their note values. What? Okay, thanks so much and keep watching. There's more here on Connor's Music at Home. How could they tell that the composer was writing past his bedtime? 'Cause he slurred everything. Wow. All right, there you have it. We've talked to great lengths. We've attached notes together to great lengths to discuss ties and slurs. So as a final recap, I've got the definitions written out from Oxford. A tie is to attach or fasten someone or something with string or similar cord. And a slur is an insinuation or allegation about someone that is likely to insult or damage their reputation? No, those aren't the right definitions. Those are the definitions of those words in everyday use. And that's where we said we're talking about good slurs. I'm going to consult Barbara Warren before we go. A tie is another way of increasing the time value of a note. It is a curved line that joins two notes of the same pitch. It means that you do not play the second note, but you hold the first note for the total value of both notes. Notice that a curved lining joining two notes that are not the same pitch is not a tie. This is usually a phrase or a bowing mark. Funny enough, she doesn't actually say the word slur. Maybe she doesn't like it so much, she makes sure not to say slur. Anyway, thank you so much, everybody. That's this week's webisode, webisode number 7, talking about slurs and ties, slides and turs. Ties and slurs. There we go. Thanks so much, everybody. Now at Joe's Crazy Note Emporium, ties, ties, ties. Those are 2 notes played as one, ties. As well, we've got on sale slurs, 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 slurs. Now with more legato articulation, wow, that's slurs.